When my great-grandpa retired, he divided his property among all his kids. When he did this, it was way outside the city limits. My grandmother only had one kid, my dad, and I'm her only grandchild. My dad gave me the land. My piece is the biggest. We're also close enough now for city water and power. Some of the land has been sold to developers. My uncle subdivided his portion into acreages. He kept one and gave each of his kids a plot. My cousin has spent 10 years building his dream home up the hill from my cabin. I bought an old one-room schoolhouse and moved it onto my land. I love it. I'll retire there someday, but it needs work. My cousin's been bugging me to clear some of my woodlot. It blocks his view of the valley. He chose that lot. I don't know why he'd pick a location with an obstructed view. My wife and I live and work in the city. We only go to the cabin a few times a year. My cousin lives in his home. He and his kids constantly throw parties there. We go if we're out at the cabin, but mostly we like having the privacy of the woodlot between us. My cousin didn't. He chopped down 10 of the tallest trees between our property. All of them were on my side of the fence. When I got out there, I first saw the missing trees. I immediately checked my trail cameras. I had a video of him and his sons doing it. I went over and asked him what the heck happened. He said the trees were diseased, and he did me a favor. I told him I wanted to look at the wood. The trunks were gone, and he only had many branches. I called a tree guy from the university to come look at the stumps, and he told me that the trees were fine and that tree theft was a big deal. I told my cousin he had to do something or I would go to the cops. He said to go ahead. So I did. I called a lawyer who specializes in tree law. I didn't even know there was such a thing. Each tree was worth $50K. My cousin has gone crazy since he was served. The cops tracked down the trunks. They actually used DNA to identify my logs. The company that bought them agreed to give me the money from the trees and testify against him if I didn't charge them. My uncle and my dad came to talk to me. My cousin doesn't have the money. He would have to sell his house. If he gets a criminal conviction, it'll affect his job. We came to an agreement. My uncle gave me one of his undeveloped lots and some money. I dropped the charges against my cousin. My family is divided. On the one hand, he stole my property. On the other hand, I took money from my uncle in return for not making my cousin homeless. We planted new trees, but they'll take a long time to compensate for the old ones. My cousins are furious that I took money that was part of their inheritance, but they're madder at their idiot brother than they are at me. My dad said I shouldn't have involved the law in a family dispute. Am I the idiot? I wouldn't call the destruction of $500,000 worth of property a family dispute. You are not the idiot. Your cousin did something he knew you would have said no to and then lied about it. You did the right thing. His father should take what he had to pay for his screw-up out of his share of the inheritance. He needs to pay for what he did one way or the other and not have daddy pay. The cousin didn't even offer OP the money from selling the wood. Even if you weren't considering the replacement cost, astronomical for mature trees, the lumber theft alone would constitute a felony. That's why the lumber company was quick to settle. They were in possession of stolen goods worth a lot of money. Your dad is wrong. Your cousin not providing food to Thanksgiving family gatherings is a family issue. Stealing and selling someone else's property is a legal and criminal issue. $500,000 is no joke. Your cousin seems to have gotten away with it. His father and others paid for his arrogance and entitlement. It's a shame when family members don't allow the consequences to happen to protect their precious entitled offspring, as they don't learn from their actions if they're not punished. Some of the most significant crimes against people are done by their family, their relatives. So yes, you do involve the law. It's the only way they learn their lesson. My 35 male, dad 65, always claimed to be family-oriented, but by that he meant his siblings, which is good. I have 2 brothers and a sister, and I'll help them out, be there for them, etc. But my dad always took it to the next level. They always took priority. He spent many nights with them instead of us. We were not invited. My mom pretty much raised us on our own. He missed a lot of events. The most egregious was when my sister, then only 6 years old, had major surgery and needed a lot of help recovering. Around that time, my uncle decided to paint his entire house and asked my dad and another uncle to help. Instead of helping my mom, his wife, with their daughter, he did that and was barely home. My mom and dad often argued about this at length. My siblings and I would express disappointment that these things took priority over us. He should hang out with the extended family one-on-one, but I wished he were here with us more. He told us to stop being selfish. I will say, when he was around, he did stress the importance of my siblings and me getting along. He said we'd be all we had when he and our mom were gone. In turn, we all are very close. But I think a large part of that is that we spent a lot of time raising each other alongside our mom. One of my brothers, my sister, and I agreed that we didn't want to be the same when we had families. My other brother, the youngest, didn't agree. This has led to some issues. I'm now married with 3 kids myself, including a newborn. My youngest brother and his wife are doing major repairs on the house. To save money, they're doing the lion's share themselves, but they expect that to also extend to my siblings and me. My sister offered to watch their kids when needed, but said she couldn't help much outside that. My older brother could help more as his kids are out of the house. I said I'd help when possible, but my wife is my priority. My younger brother recently asked me to spend the weekend helping him with repairs. It would be a lot of work, about 12-hour days. I said I could help a few hours one day, but my wife is recovering from a C-section, and we have the deal that I look after our 2 older kids, both toddlers. I have to return to work soon, so I want to help her as much as possible. We have a mother's helper when I return to work, but I'm all she has for now. My brother got mad and said that this needs to get done, and he can't put it off. I said this is all I can offer. He called our dad, who called me, and said I should help. But when I explained that my wife had no other help and couldn't do it alone for 2 days, he said my siblings needed to come first because we're all we have. And I said that that's not true. We each have families, and we can't always prioritize siblings. He kept arguing, and I said I wasn't going to be him, abandoning his wife for days on end and neglecting his family. He called me an ungrateful brat. My mom says she agrees with my actions, but I should have just stuck to them. I wasn't helping. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Yes, your siblings are your siblings and are what you have, but prioritizing them over your home life is rough on a marriage. That's your home. You learned from your father's mistakes. You would be willing to help your brother, but you must help your spouse. And weirdly, Dad is suggesting that you're ungrateful? Who are you supposed to be grateful to? And for what? You have a newborn, other children, and an impaired wife. Why aren't your brother and father knocking on the door to help you? Where's their gratitude? Who will ensure you've had enough sleep to succeed at your job? Ungrateful? Your wife gave you children, for goodness sake. Your younger brother may have been less affected than you and your older siblings have. As the youngest, he may have had more support from older siblings, filling the gap his dad left. Your dad and his drama are no longer your concern. You're a fully functioning adult, and your perspective on this is, quite frankly, better than your dad's. So tell him to butt out of your life. And if he's such a family man himself, he can go help with the repairs himself, or he can shut up. I, female 29, was recently invited to a work dinner as one of my colleagues is retiring. It was being held at a little barbecue restaurant in town. I was told that the dress code was smart casual. For context, I wore a nice skirt and a button-up and a pair of Crocs. I live in a hot climate, and lots of people, such as myself, wear sandals, Crocs, and flip-flops everywhere. When we got to the restaurant, they had a dress code, and the hostess loudly told me I couldn't come in wearing Crocs. It was extremely embarrassing in front of my coworkers and I don't really understand the problem because there were people wearing sneakers, Converse, etc., and that's fine, but Crocs aren't. It wasn't even a fancy restaurant, so I really wasn't expecting this. Anyway, one of my coworkers urged me to go home, change my shoes, and return. I was so distraught, I ended up just going home and not coming back. I suffer from anxiety, and the whole experience just made me melt down. My coworkers are now collectively angry at me for leaving and not coming back. My boss told me the event wasn't about me, and I should have sucked it up. Was I an idiot for leaving? I was told the dress code was smart casual. Nowhere has that ever meant foam toddler shoes. No matter that Crocs are your standard footwear, this was an occasion with a specified dress code that does not include Crocs. Would you wear them to a wedding? You are the idiot, OP. Yeah, lady, what made you think that Crocs were business casual or smart casual? They're house shoes for children, at best. Try to be more professional. You turned your coworker's retirement party into an occasion where you were the main topic of conversation, all over a pair of shoes. If your anxiety is so intense that you can't handle being told that you're not in the dress code, you need to get help, or better help, if you're already seeing a therapist. Can you imagine if the whole table is seated inside and waiting for her to return to order? She's just changing her shoes. She'll be here any minute. I'm just laughing at a barbecue restaurant having any dress code more significant than a wife beater, gym shorts, and flip-flops. It's a freaking barbecue joint. Who the heck dresses up for that? My dad put me, a teen male, into therapy last year. I didn't want to go, but he told me it was something he felt I needed, and it was something his wife suggested, and because she's a teacher, she'd know. Therapy's supposed to be just the therapist and me. The actual appointments are. I even liked the therapist. We talked a lot, and I was honest and did the homework they set for me. Something I didn't know was the therapist was telling my dad everything I said to them. I found out 3 weeks ago. I had an appointment on Tuesday, and things were normal. Then Wednesday, my dad got home late from work like he normally does once or twice a week, but he was in a crappy mood. He glared at me for about an hour and even scolded me for going to my room when my toddler half-sister started fussing. He followed me up to my room about 30 minutes later, and he brought up the stuff I said in therapy. So I figured out pretty quickly that the reason my dad wanted me to go to therapy is that we're not the picture-perfect blended family. I don't choose to spend time with my two half-siblings, both toddlers. The therapist asked questions about my feelings about my mom, who died, my dad remarrying, his wife, and the kids. I even had homework surrounding that. However, 3 weeks ago, during that appointment, I admitted that I said half-siblings because I know they are technically, but I don't love them or really think about them as my siblings or real siblings. This was the stuff my dad was mad about. He said saying that I don't love my siblings is out of this world cruelty or something like that. He told me I had begged for siblings when my mom was alive, and now that I have them, I don't give a crap because we have different moms. That it's crappy because it's not his fault mom died, and he lost her too, and the kids don't deserve to grow up with an unloving sibling or whatever. Dad told me therapy was meant to help me work through the mental block by letting them in, but he was convinced I just didn't care about trying and I didn't feel bad. I asked him how the heck he knew about all that. He told me he and the therapist talk after every appointment. He talks about it with his wife after he discusses stuff with the therapist. He also told me his wife might not be my mom, but to say I don't really care about her was a hurtful thing to say out loud too. He told me he let that go because she's an adult and can handle it, and he thought that could change with time. But he was very clear. He thought my not loving my half-siblings was unbelievably crappy and made me the kind of person who can never be good. I was angry that the stuff I was saying was repeated right back to my dad and that nothing I said would be kept from him. So I went to the appointments because I didn't feel like I could say no without things getting bad. But I don't talk now. My dad and his wife are angrier because I'm wasting the money. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It would help if you told the therapist why you're no longer engaging and that they've betrayed your trust. Tell them that this was a breach of trust and confidentiality. You could even report this therapist to their professional body about this. But I wondered whether she was actually a therapist and if she was just a friend of the dad or the stepmom. Your dad should not be privy to your sessions. Depending on the state, OP is a teen and still a kid. So in most states, legal guardians have full access to records and patient notes. Not saying it isn't crappy for the therapist to just tell dad and stepmom what was said, but totally legal in most places. When I had to put my son in therapy, I was told that I could have access to the session notes because I was his legal guardian while he was under 18. Still, they would prefer I left it alone. I left it alone and didn't discuss it unless my child told me about it. That's because you're a decent person who actually had your kid's best interest at heart. The dad doesn't understand that the only reason he has this wife and these 2 children is because OP's mother died. That OP would rather have his mother back than accept this new family. OP, I'm so angry on your behalf. That is a significant breach of trust by all the adults. It's like reading your diary. Your private thoughts are all your own at this point in your life. My husband and I have been together for over 20 years, but have never married. Our son, 19, came out as gay 5 years ago, and of course we supported him completely. He has a boyfriend who he's been official with since then, and he's a great kid, and I'm glad they're happy together. Now, here's the issue. My father-in-law is a very old and phobic man. He doesn't have social media, so keeping him from finding out about our son being gay wasn't hard. He's leaving my husband and son each more than $500,000 when he dies, and I know for sure he wouldn't leave this money once he finds out our son is gay. So with the wedding coming up, we told our son his boyfriend couldn't come. He tried to argue that he could just come as a friend, but we've said no to that. We're worried our father-in-law would catch them holding hands or being cute with each other, and that would be that. Our son is now refusing to go to the wedding and even said if his boyfriend can't come, he'll go nuclear and just tell his grandfather. We've tried to explain that he'd be throwing away so much money, but he doesn't care. Am I the idiot? Well, that's a huge mistake. I would certainly take $500,000 to skip a wedding. You are not the idiot, but why are you so concerned about getting married now after waiting so long? You've waited this long to get married. Just wait until the old man dies and the family you like can come to the wedding. Problem solved. Boy, I'd take $20 to skip a wedding, but I'm an introvert. They'd both be nearing retirement age. If one dies, the other won't be out of a house of money. I'm guessing it's marriage for next of kin rights and ensuring you take care of each other in retirement. Your son is 19 and high on righteousness and moral superiority. $500,000 for someone his age is life-altering. It's a college degree without debt. It's buying a house outright in many areas, or the difference between paying off your mortgage in 10 years instead of 30. Is your father-in-law an idiot? Of course he is. Does pandering to his prejudices suck? Of course it does. The best revenge your son can have on the old bigoted bastard is to one day start a tradition saying, "Thanks, Grandpa," every morning when he and his husband wake up in the house that Grandpa's money paid for. Why do you get to have a non-traditional relationship with kids out of wedlock for over 20 years, but the second you want to make it official, you have to shove your son back in the closet? It sounds to me like the money from your partner's father, not your father-in-law. You have to be married for that. It's contingent on you two marrying. So you're selling your son's happiness for your gains. You are the idiot. Enjoy Shady Pines. And I just noticed that you called your partner your husband repeatedly in this story. He's not your husband, as, again, you have to be married for that.